What happens when two of music's biggest powerhouses collide on live television, dragging a decades-old controversy into the spotlight that was never supposed to resurface? You're about to find out. Because what unfolded on the Kelly Clarkson Show left the studio audience, and even the crew, in absolute shock. Be sure to subscribe and drop a comment below, because this story has more twists than anyone could have predicted. Kelly Clarkson leaned back in her chair, her trademark warm, smile lighting up her face as she looked at her guest. The audience buzzed with excitement, phones already out, expecting another heartwarming interview filled with laughter and nostalgia. "Shania, I have to tell you," Kelly began, her voice glowing with sincerity. "Having you here is honestly a dream come true. Your music shaped so much of my childhood, and millions of others around the world." Shania smiled politely, but her body language was stiff, guarded. "Well, that's very kind, Kelly. I've always admired your voice, and your success after American Idol certainly opened doors for so many artists. Thank you," Kelly said, clasping her hands. "You know, I was thinking before you came out, we've never really had a real conversation about the industry itself, how it's changed since our careers started. You dominated the 90s, then I came along in the early 2000s. For the briefest moment, something flickered across Shania's face, but she quickly smoothed it over. "Yes," she said carefully. "The industry has changed quite a bit." Kelly leaned forward, interviewer instincts kicking in. "I remember when I was just starting, there were all these stories floating around about established artists and how they felt about newcomers. Probably just tabloid nonsense, but you know how this business can be." Shania's tone cooled. "I'm not sure I follow what you're getting at." The audience picked up on the shift instantly. The cheerful energy in the room fell silent as tension crept in. Kelly hesitated, but instead of backing away, she pressed forward. "Well, there were always rumors that some artists felt threatened by new talent, or that the industry was moving too fast for their liking. I'm sure you heard some of that too." Shania's jaw tightened. "Kelly, maybe we should stick to talking about music instead of rehashing gossip from 20 years ago." "Of course," Kelly said quickly, but the look in her eyes said otherwise. She wasn't ready to let it go. "I just think it's fascinating how perception can differ from reality. Like, there was this one article where someone said reality TV winners would never have staying power in country music." The studio froze. Even the camera operators seemed to hold their breath. Shania's eyes narrowed. "Are you referring to something specific, Kelly? Or are we just tossing out vague references to old tabloid stories?" Kelly's smile faltered, then returned, though it looked strained. "I'm just saying, it's funny how wrong those predictions turned out to be. Here we are, both still making music, still connecting with fans. Yes," Shania said evenly. "Here we are." But her tone carried an unmistakable edge. The tension in the room was undeniable now. Kelly pressed on. "I guess what I'm really curious about is whether you ever felt like the industry tried to pit women against each other, especially when newer artists were coming up and established ones were, well, maintaining their relevance." Shania repeated the words slowly, almost tasting them. "Maintaining their relevance? That's an interesting way to phrase it, Kelly." Kelly quickly backtracked. "I don't mean it negatively. I just think it's fascinating how success gets measured, how artists adapt to change." "And you think I was worried about my relevance when you won American Idol?" Shania interrupted, her voice sharp. The audience went dead silent. Producers, backstage were no doubt panicking, unsure whether to cut to commercial or let it play. "I never said that," Kelly insisted, though her defensive tone betrayed her. "No, you didn't," Shania shot back. "But you've been circling around, something since this interview started, and I think we both know what that is." Kelly took a long breath. For a second, it looked like she might de-escalate. Instead, she leaned in. "Look, Shania, we're both adults, and we both know there were comments made back then. Comments that weren't exactly supportive of new artists coming into country music from, let's say, unconventional paths." Shania's expression hardened. "Comments that I supposedly made. I'm not accusing you," Kelly said quickly. "I'm just saying, there were reports, and maybe this is the chance to finally clear the air." The room felt like it was holding one collective breath. Shania leaned forward now, locking eyes with Kelly. "You know what? Let's clear the air. If you have something to say it. Stop hiding behind unnamed sources and old tabloid gossip." Kelly's smile disappeared completely. Determination replaced it. "Fine. There was an interview you did with Countries, weekly, where you said artists from reality TV shows were taking shortcuts. That real country artists paid their dues the hard way. You specifically said." Kelly pressed on, her voice trembling but unrelenting, "that winners from singing competitions would never understand the struggles authentic country musicians went through." The audience gasped audibly. A few in the front row leaned forward, phones held high, capturing every second of what was quickly turning into television history. Shania didn't flinch. "And you think that was about you?" "I think the timing was convenient," Kelly shot back, her tone rising. "That was right after I won American Idol, right when I was breaking into country music, and suddenly there's Shania Twain telling the world that people like me don't deserve to be taken seriously. People like you," Shania repeated, her voice dripping with disbelief. "Kelly, you won the biggest singing competition in America. You had instant fame, instant recognition, a record deal handed to you. How is that the same struggle as artists who spent years grinding in Nashville, playing empty bars, living out of their cars, writing songs that never got heard?" Kelly's cheeks flushed. "So you're saying I didn't earn my success? That because I won a competition, everything that followed was just handed to me?" "I'm saying your path was different," Shania replied coldly. "And at the time, I thought it was important to acknowledge that difference. Country music has always been built on authenticity, on lived stories, on real hardship." "And you think my hardships weren't real?" Kelly snapped, her voice trembling with both anger and hurt. "Growing up poor in Texas? Working 2 jobs to keep food on the table? An absent father? None of that was real enough for your version of authenticity?" For a flicker of a moment, it seemed Shania might soften, but instead she doubled down. "Your struggles were real, Kelly. But your career path was manufactured. There's a difference." The audience was transfixed. This was no longer an interview. It was a duel. Live on daytime television. Kelly shot up from her chair, startling everyone. "Manufactured. That's what you really think of me? That everything I've done, every song I've written, every performance, every ounce of work is just manufactured success because I happened to win a competition at 20? Shania remained seated, rigid as steel. "I think the industry changed, and not for the better. Reality TV created a shortcut, a pipeline to fame that skipped the years of development, the dues artists used to pay. That's not a personal attack. It's an observation." "Oh, it's a personal attack," Kelly fired back, her voice echoing through the studio. "Don't you dare pretend otherwise. You singled out reality show winners in that interview. You weren't talking about the industry. You were talking about me." Shania's reply was quiet but cutting. "If the shoe fits." Another audible gasp swept through the room. Some audience members covered their mouths, while others whispered in disbelief. Behind the cameras, producers looked like they were seconds from pulling the plug. Kelly's hands shook, her voice raw with emotion. "Are you serious right now? Shania, I have done nothing but respect you and your legacy from the day I stepped into this business. I've praised your music, acknowledged your influence, never once said a single negative word about you. And this is how you repay that?" "I appreciate that," Shania said coolly, though her tone carried little gratitude. "Do you?" Kelly shot back. "Because it feels like you've been waiting 20 years for this moment. To tell me that in your eyes, I'll never be a real country artist. That I'll always be an outsider, a fraud." Finally, Shania stood. The two women now faced each other across the small stage, the air between them charged like static. "I don't think you're a fraud, Kelly. You're talented. But talent isn't the same as authenticity. And country music lost something when the industry started elevating television personalities over genuine country artists." "Television? Personalities," Kelly repeated, her voice cracking with fury. "So that's what I am to you? A TV personality who stumbled into music? I think you're a pop star," Shania said, her words sharp as glass. "Who dipped into country when it suited you." The studio went dead silent. Even the cameras seemed frozen in place. Kelly's face cycled from shock to pain to cold fury. "After everything I've accomplished, after all the respect I've shown you, you're going to stand here on my stage and tell me I'm not a real country artist?" Shania's expression didn't waver. "I'm telling you the same thing I told Country Weekly 20 years ago. The industry changed, and not everyone was happy about that." Kelly stepped back, her voice suddenly quiet but deadly steady. "Well, congratulations, Shania. You finally said what you really think. I hope it was worth it." The tension was suffocating. No one in the audience dared breathe too loud. They all knew. They were witnessing television history. Kelly's eyes never left Shania as she added, voice breaking slightly. "You know the saddest part. I invited you here out of respect, out of admiration. I thought we could sit here, two women in this business, and have a real conversation about music, about survival, about what it cost us. Instead..." Shania's composure cracked, just barely. Her voice was steady, but a faint edge of vulnerability slipped through. "And we are having that conversation, Kelly. Sometimes honest conversations aren't comfortable," Shania said, her voice low but steady. "Honest?" Kelly let out a sharp, bitter laugh that echoed through the hushed studio. "You want honesty, Shania? Let me be honest with you. That Country Weekly interview you did all those years ago, the one where you decided to take shots at reality show winners, do you have any idea what that did to me? Do you know what it felt like to have someone I idolized tell the world I didn't belong in country music?" Shania's jaw tightened, but she stayed silent. Kelly pressed forward, her voice gaining strength. "I was 20 years old. I'd just been given this incredible opportunity, still trying to figure out who I was as an artist. And then one morning, I wake up and find out my hero thinks I took a shortcut, that I didn't deserve to be taken seriously. The industry is tough," Shania said finally, almost a whisper. "Everyone faces criticism. Criticism? Kelly snapped. That's your response? That wasn't criticism. That was you undermining my credibility before I even had a chance to prove myself. I was expressing an opinion about the industry, Shania insisted, though her voice had lost its earlier certainty. No, Kelly shot back, her eyes flashing. You were talking about me. Don't hide behind vague commentary. You knew exactly who you were aiming at. Kelly took a step closer, her tone sharp as a blade. And you know what's really ironic? You talk about authenticity and paying dues. But let me ask you something. When you married your producer and he shaped your sound, your image, your entire career, was that the hard way? The audience gasped in unison. Everyone in the room knew Kelly had just crossed a dangerous line. Shania's face went pale. How dare you? How dare I? Kelly cut her off, her voice slicing through the air. Point out that your success didn't come from some noble Nashville grind either. You married the man who produced your biggest hits, Shania. He built the foundation of your career. So please, tell me again about manufactured success. My personal life has nothing to do with this, Shania hissed, her voice trembling. With anger, doesn't it? Kelly pressed, relentless now. You want to lecture me on authenticity when your biggest albums were created in collaboration with the man you were sleeping with. At least I won my chance in front of millions of people. I didn't win mine in somebody's bedroom. The studio fell into suffocating silence. Audience members covered their mouths. Even the cameras seemed to freeze. Shania's hands shook as she stepped toward Kelly, her face blazing with fury. You have no idea what you're talking about. Don't I? Kelly's voice was cold now, deliberate. Mutt Lange turned you from a struggling country singer into an international superstar. He wrote your songs. He produced your albums. He crafted your image. And when he left you, for your best friend, your career suddenly stalled. But sure, let's talk about authenticity. Shania's voice dropped to a razor's edge. You know nothing about my marriage, nothing about my process, nothing about what I endured. I know you built your career on a relationship, Kelly fired back. Just like you're accusing me of building mine on a TV show. The only difference? My shortcut was public. Yours was private. Shania's composure cracked. This interview is over. Kelly crossed her arms, daring her. Funny. Last I checked, this is my show, and you're still my guest. Not anymore, Shania snapped, turning toward the stage exit. Oh, so now you're just going to walk away? Kelly called after her. Like you always do when someone challenges your version of the story? Shania froze mid-step, then turned back, eyes blazing. What did you just say? You heard me, Kelly said, her voice steady, cutting through the tense silence. This is what you did 20 years ago. Instead of lifting up new artists, especially women, you tore them down to protect your place at the top. And now that someone's finally calling you out, you're running again. I am not running from anything, Shania said, marching back toward Kelly. I'm refusing to continue a conversation with someone who drags my personal life onto national television, like you dragged mine through the press. Kelly shot back instantly. You've been doing it for 2 decades. You started this. I'm finishing it. The two women stood nose to nose now, the studio holding its collective breath. Shania finally spoke, her voice sharp but shaking with contained emotion. You want to know what I really think? I think you've spent your whole career trying to prove you belong in country music, and deep down, you're still insecure about it. That's why this cuts so deep. That's why you can't let it go. Kelly's face drained of color, but she didn't retreat. And I think you've spent your career trying to convince people your success was legitimate, when deep down, you know without Mutt Lange, you'd still be playing bars in Canada. The words landed like a bomb. The silence afterward was unbearable, heavy, final. Both women stood frozen, locked in a stare that carried 2 decades of resentment. Something irreversible had just been spoken, and everyone in the room knew nothing would ever be the same again. The audience was completely motionless, as if afraid even the smallest shift might shatter the fragile air holding the studio together. Shania was the first to move. She took one measured step backward, her gaze locked on Kelly's, steady but cold. You know what, Kelly? I came here expecting a real conversation about our music, about our journeys, about the industry we've both given our lives to. Instead, you dragged up 2 decades of resentment and turned this into an ambush. And when I defended myself, you went straight for my personal life. Kelly's arms remained folded tightly across her chest, her body angled like a shield, though her eyes betrayed the toll this was taking. I didn't ambush you. I brought up the truth we've both been avoiding for 20 years. You're the one who twisted it into an attack on my career, on whether or not I belong here. Your career was never the question, Shania said, her voice quieter now, frayed with fatigue. What I questioned was the path you took. There's a difference, Kelly, though I'm not sure you've ever cared to see it. Oh, I see it, Kelly snapped back, her tone sharpening. I see that when the industry started to change, you felt threatened. Instead of adapting, or maybe even lifting up new voices, you chose to tear us down, because it was easier than facing your own insecurities. Shania shook her head slowly, almost pitying. Threatened? Kelly, by the time you were on American Idol, I'd already broken every record I dreamed of breaking. I wasn't afraid of competition. I had nothing left to prove. Then why? Kelly stepped forward, her voice cracking but fierce. Why make those comments? Why diminish us? If it wasn't fear, then what was it? For a beat, Shania looked, as though she might finally answer. Instead, she lifted her chin, her voice firm. Because I believe in the value of the old way, of paying dues in honky-tonks, of writing songs nobody hears for years, of fighting tooth and nail just to get one shot. That struggle carves an artist into who they really are. Kelly's breath caught, her own voice breaking. And you don't think I struggled? You don't think poverty, rejection, and clawing my way through life before Idol counts? You think the cameras erased the years before that? Your struggle was real, Shania admitted. But winning a TV show put you on a path others wait their whole lives for. That isn't your fault. But it's not the same thing as the Nashville grind. Kelly stared at her, her next words soft but sharp as glass. You're right. It's not the same, it's different. But different doesn't mean fake. It doesn't mean less authentic. And the fact that after everything I've done, you still can't see that? That says more about you than it ever will about me. Shania's eyes hardened. And the fact you invited me here just to replay an interview from 20 years ago, that says plenty about you. I invited you here to clear the air, Kelly shot back. I thought maybe we could finally put it behind us. Instead, I learned you still believe I don't deserve to stand in this genre, that my career was built on shortcuts, or worse. I never said that, Shania protested. You didn't have to, Kelly replied bitterly. Just like you didn't have to say my name in that article. Everyone knew who you meant. Shania's eyes flicked across the studio. The frozen audience, the crew scrambling off camera, the relentless red lights of the cameras recording every second of this unraveling. She exhaled hard, then reached for her purse. "This was a mistake. I never should have agreed to this." "Running away again," Kelly called after her as she moved toward the wings. Shania stopped, her back stiff, then turned once more, her voice sharp and clear. "I'm not running, Kelly. I'm ending this before either of us says something even more unforgivable. We've already crossed that line enough today." "I don't regret a word," Kelly said firmly. "For the first time in 20 years, we've been completely honest with each other. That counts for something." "Does it?" Shania asked, her voice brittle. "Because from where I stand, all I see is two women who will never respect each other again. Tell me, was that worth it?" Kelly hesitated, then nodded once. "Yes, because now there's no pretending, no fake smiles, no dodging the truth. Everyone knows exactly where we stand." Shania's lips curved into something between a grimace and a smirk. "Good luck with that honesty, Kelly. I hope it serves you better than it has here." With that, Shania Twain turned and strode off stage, leaving Kelly Clarkson alone beneath the lights, the audience still too stunned to clap or breathe. The cameras stayed locked on Kelly as she stood, her face cycling from anger to hurt to something else. Entirely, relief maybe. When she finally turned back toward the audience, she forced a breath, her posture straightening. "Well," she said, her voice cutting clean through the silence. "That certainly wasn't what I had planned for today's shows." The audience remained frozen, still trapped in the shock of what they'd seen. Kelly walked slowly back to her chair, lowered herself into it, and looked straight into the lens. "I want to thank everyone for watching today," she said evenly. "And I want to thank those of you who will continue to support both Shania and me, even after what just happened here. Sometimes the most important conversations are also the hardest. Sometimes the truth hurts everyone involved. But I'll always believe honesty is better than silence." Her eyes swept over the audience, still quiet, still processing. "So thank you for being here for one of the most intense interviews of my career. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and let me know in the comments what you think. Do you believe Shania and I can ever find common ground after this?" The credits began to roll as Kelly sat unmoving in her chair, the confrontation's weight etched into her face, but her head held high. The cameras lingered until the last possible second, then finally, mercifully, went dark.